Welcome. Today, we're diving into a story that sounds like it was ripped straight out of a Hollywood movie. A slave's son who becomes the most powerful man on Earth. But this isn't fiction. This is the incredible, and pretty tragic, real-life story of a Roman emperor.
I mean, it sounds impossible, right? It's the ultimate underdog story. But in the wild year of 1903 AD, this wasn't some myth. It was the shocking and frankly dangerous reality for a truly remarkable man named Pertinax.
Okay, so let's get one thing straight right away, because it's a really important distinction. Pertinax himself was never a slave. His father, Helvius Successus, was. That means Pertinax was born a free Roman citizen, but he was just one single generation away from bondage, and that is what makes his climb to the very top just so mind-blowing. So, how in the world did he pull it off? How does the son of a former slave climb his way out of the bottom of a really rigid society to the absolute pinnacle of power? Well, it came down to his talent, his insane ambition, and, this one really unique thing about the Roman world.
See, while Rome definitely had its snobby aristocrats and its strict class system, the army was the big exception. It was basically a true meritocracy, a place where you could get ahead based on your skills, not who your dad was. For an outsider like Pertinax, the military wasn't just a job, it was his only real shot at the top.
And wow, did he climb. His career was just relentless. He wasn't just a good soldier, he was incredible. He literally rocketed up the ranks, from a junior officer to a senator to governing the wild frontiers of Britain, all the way to basically being the mayor of Rome itself. At every single step, he proved time and time again that he was the best man for the job.
And then, total chaos created his big opportunity. On New Year's Eve, the corrupt and kind of crazy Emperor Commodus gets murdered. The assassins needed a replacement, and fast. Someone respected, someone competent, someone who wasn't part of the old, rotten regime. After all those years of loyal service, Pertinax was the obvious choice. He was their guy. So just like that, Pertinax is emperor, the most powerful man in the world. But he didn't inherit some stable empire. No, he inherited an absolute disaster. Commodus had left everything a mess. A corrupt government, a totally empty treasury, and a city in decay. He had a monumental task ahead of him. And he had almost no time to do it. He would only be in power for 87 days. So, knowing the clock was ticking, he launched this absolute blitz of reforms. It was a desperate race against time to try and fix a broken Rome. He didn't waste a single second. He cracked down on the emperor's spoiled bodyguards, the Praetorian Guard. He held a massive auction of all of Commodus's ridiculous luxuries. We're talking everything from pleasure barges to concubines, just to pay the state's debts. He was basically trying to turn back the clock to a better, more virtuous Rome.
And maybe his biggest move? He fixed the money itself. He boosted the silver content of the main coin, the denarius, from a pathetic 74% all the way back up to 87%. Now, this was a genius economic move to fight inflation, but it also meant that all the people who got rich off the old corrupt system were about to lose big time, and they were not happy about it.
And that brings us to the one group that benefited most from all the corruption, the emperor's own elite bodyguards, the Praetorian Guard. These guys were used to being pampered and getting whatever they wanted from emperors like Commodus, and they saw Pertinax's honesty as a direct threat to their lifestyle.
They were furious. All their special perks were gone. They were suddenly being held to a higher standard. And worst of all, the big bonus they got when he became emperor, well, it was paid for by selling off old palace luxuries, not out of a full treasury. They felt totally cheated and disrespected. So all that anger, it just boiled over. On March 28th, less than 3 months into his reign, a mob of several hundred Praetorians, the very men sworn to protect the emperor, stormed the palace gates. They were determined to end his reforms for good. And get this, in this final, terrifying moment, Pertinax showed what he was made of. His attendants all fled, but he refused to run. He literally walked out there to face the mob of mutinous soldiers himself, trying to reason with them, to remind them of their oath.
But it was no use. You can't reason with a mob. The soldiers just swarmed him and cut him down. And just like that, the reign that had started with so much hope, the reign of the slave's son, ended in a pool of blood on the palace floor.
So, you'd think that's the end of the story, right? A tragic failure, just a little footnote in history. But his death? That wasn't the end.
Not by a long shot. In a lot of ways, the legacy of his 87-day reign was just getting started.
You see, the guy who eventually came out on top after the civil war that followed, Septimius Severus, he built his entire claim to power on Pertinax's memory. First, he hunted down and executed the assassins. Then, he got the Senate to officially declare Pertinax a god. And for the finishing touch, he actually added the name Pertinax to his own, basically signaling to everyone, I'm going to rule with the same integrity.
And this wasn't just some political spin. The historian Cassius Dio, who was a senator and actually knew Pertinax, called him an excellent and upright man. His only real criticism was that Pertinax just moved too fast, that he tried to fix everything all at once, which is what ultimately sealed his fate.
And this idea of him as a hero, it just stuck. It echoed through the centuries. Machiavelli used him as a perfect example in The Prince of a good leader who gets destroyed trying to clean up a corrupt military. The philosopher David Hume called him an excellent prince. His story became this timeless, cautionary tale.
So, in the end, his life wasn't a failure at all. It was proof of concept. He proved that even in a place like ancient Rome, where you were born didn't have to be your destiny. His impossible journey is the ultimate testament to what talent, ambition, and sheer will can achieve. Ultimately, his story leaves us with this really heavy question, one that feels just as important today as it did 2,000 years ago. What is the real price of fighting corruption? And are the boldest reformers, the ones who really try to change things, always destined to become martyrs for the cause? It's a powerful idea to think about.